Okay, Zaltor being given an excellent civilization for Gold Rush. He's got Mayans in the top right part of the map. Peganator with Turks, which is a very interesting civilization to play in Gold Rush, because if you get denied access to the middle gold, you're pretty much GG, because Turks are so gold intensive that without that gold, access to the middle gold, you're going to really struggle to put up any kind of fight at all once your gold on the outside runs out.
Yes.
I'm going to turn the in-game chat off because there's quite a lot of 11s being spammed. I normally don't mind it, and actually, if there's a few spectators in there saying meaningful things about the game, it means I sometimes miss something and they pick up stuff that I can then point out to you if you didn't notice it either. But if they're going to keep writing 11, then it's going to be very annoying. Let's have a look at the middle gold. It seems that it's slightly closer to the Peganator. It's not really a big deal, but the interesting thing is that Peganator has got a massive hill on his side of it, which means that if Zaltor sort of sets up on this part of the gold, Peganator's going to be able to retake it more easily because he'll be attacking downhill, and if there's a sort of army sort of skirmish between actual soldiers rather than castles and towers and things, and then Peganator will have the advantage in pushing Zaltor's army away from the middle. That said, given that there's this enormous cliff here, he's probably going to have to come at it from the left side. So that hill potentially isn't really even any closer to Peganator than Zaltor in terms of actual travel distance, considering he's got to go around. So we'll see how that comes into play, but it's quite interesting that we've got this kind of map where there's a big hill overlooking the gold, and the fact that if somebody does take the gold, then they will be vulnerable to getting attacked downhill whilst trying to defend it. Of course, on Gold Rush, you also have the Wolves. We did see in the Noobs of AoC tournament a nice clip where I think it was Hyun A or Hyuna, I don't know how it's pronounced, did a wolf trained rush right into the wood line of his opponent, picked up multiple villagers. I doubt we'll see that in this game just because the wolves are in so well. The position that they're in is not really conducive to doing that, given that they're all over to the side. But maybe someone will just decide, oh, I'll go for it anyway because it'll be funny. But I think that the game has obviously been very kind to Zaltor. I think the game wants him to pick up a consolation game. So obviously initially I was talking about the game of Age of Empires, trying to give Zaltor a little bit of a boost and so that he doesn't go down 3-0 in this confrontation, because Mayans obviously do very, very well against Turks and they're perfectly suited to this map. I think they would be one of the number one choices in this map, given that the Castle Drop and Plumed Archer play is so strong. But as we see, Zaltor is managing to get a boar steal as long as he continues to micro that eagle and doesn't let it fall idle as it just did. Seems like he's going to do that just fine and bring in that boar, and that's going to be pretty decisive because sort of speed up to Castle Age in particular, if you're going for a Castle Drop, but is quite decisive on this map. Oh, don't let that happen. Because if you're able to move out with a slightly bigger army or get a castle down first or get some towers down first, then you're able to take control of the middle gold, and that will be put Peganator in a disgustingly difficult position. So this boar steal is really a very good idea if he manages to pull it off, but he's already run back once and now he can only take one more hit with the eagle. Villager's going to get it though, so it should be fine. I don't think this boar is going to die in a very helpful spot, but nonetheless he has executed the boar steal, and that's what matters the most. Seems like Zaltor has probably compromised his own Dark Age quite a lot in order to get that boar steal in, because he was at 22 population at 9 minutes with only 300 food in the bank. So you see that quite a lot, really. Players who perhaps aren't used to stealing boars a lot, or don't quite have the macro and multitasking ability to do something as micro intensive as a boar steal, they often compromise their own Dark Age as a result. That's what's happened here, but nonetheless it's definitely an advantage. He's still got the same villager count as the Peganator, so he has kind of thrown away the Mayhem villager advantage, but with 3 boars he's not going to care too much about that. So we'll look at the Peganator's resources. He's managed to click up with 1 boar less. I'm not sure if he took deer at this point. Looks like he must have taken them here, because I can just see the corpses disappearing, and there was one there as well. So making use of the deer, obviously something you need to do if you want to go up to Feudal Age. Is a good time if you have your boar stolen, but it looks like that boar steal hasn't affected him too much. He will need to add more farms now, obviously having had about 300 less natural food income, but I don't think it's going to cause his economy to stutter and stall as it may have done if he didn't go and take those deer quickly. About 45 seconds difference in Feudal Age. This is a slightly weird lumber camp here. Given that the villagers can't walk around it to get to trees on the other side, we know villagers, they don't always take the most obvious tree once they finish the one they're on. So we'll probably see some of these villagers finish a tree and then try and go all the way around to the other side. Obviously, if that tree and that tree can be chopped, then it won't be such a problem. But really, it would have been better to put it somewhere else, like here or even up here, maybe. There were many better options. I'm not quite sure why he trapped it between 2 forests like that. Both players in the Feudal Age. Peganator going for a straight fast castle build, having walled himself in. His stone position isn't really the best if Zaltor goes aggressive on it. So I don't know if he wants to do a fast castle drop. He hasn't added villagers to stone early enough. Normally you'd want a couple of villagers collecting stone much earlier on than this, and then add some more later on. In fact, what are his resources like? Yeah, he's managed to click to the castle age, but he's going for a barracks, so don't think he's going to do a castle drop at all. He's not, or even a few minutes into the castle age. He may actually be going like cavalry or knights. Hard to say. Looks like Zaltor is going for a fast castle build of his own, given that he's dropping down a market. Although, he does have a blacksmith. Needs to close this. Oh yeah, he closed it as I do it, as I say it. The Peganator is going for the fast castle drop after all, having only now added villagers to stone. Ideally, you would want a couple of villagers collecting stone much earlier, and then you add some more as you're on your way up, or just before. But this should work out for him in this game, given that Zaltor is doing the same sort of build with a sort of market blacksmith fast castle and stone of his own. So he's obviously going for a castle drop up too. He does actually have the stone earlier than the Peganator does, but he doesn't have the castle age up. In fact, he's only just clicked, so it's not really going to matter. And with Peganator having so many villages on stone, he'll be able to move out very quickly. His scout is now like cavalry, so he'll be able to pick off that eagle so easily. especially as Zaltor didn't heal it in his town centre after it went down to such low HP whilst executing the boar steal. Peganator also adding some more villagers to gold. I don't know if he's just going to use that for Janissaries once he gets his castle up, or whether he maybe might think about adding a stable or a siege workshop. So, Peganator is putting his castle in a very good position considering he's taking the maximum hill bonus. But what it doesn't do is completely cover all of the gold. He could really have put the hill put the castle a little bit forward, slightly down the hill, because realistically, Zaltor is never going to. If he puts the castle sort of a bit more sort of there, so that it occupies all of the gold, is in range of all the gold, and then Zaltor can't maybe occupy here or here. It's probably a slightly better position because Zaltor really isn't ever at any stage of the game going to get on this hill. So go all the way around the back and then come up here and put a castle or trebuchets or siege or whatever on that hill. So although it makes sense to take the highest hill, for me personally, and I don't know whether this is the most optimal thing, I would have just moved it a little bit forward, and because just a hill bonus is a hill bonus, even if it's only one tile of elevation. There's no difference between that and that. Looks like Zaltor, knowing he was late to the castle age, is going for a more defensive castle, but I don't think he had any scouting information at all to know that Peganator was in there, was putting his own castle there. So I guess he just intended to do that more defensive castle all along. Both players beginning to produce their unique unit, which means, of course, Janissaries and plumed archers. Really, the plumed archers are a much more versatile raiding unit on this map, and in a decent match will just take down Janissaries fairly easily, considering the Janissaries are slow firing and inaccurate, and the plumed archers can move very quickly, but sort of 1v1 in a bit more of a static fight, the Janissaries attack obviously wins out. But the Janissaries aren't very good for raiding. Peganator's map is quite vulnerable on the right hand side in terms of wood. There's a really nice... oh no, there's one tree there, it means that the raiding can't really be executed. One Janissary and the light cavalry that was his Peganator's initial scout has forced Zaltor away from his wood line on the right, which is pretty nice for the Peganator. With a few hundred stone in the bank and 4 villagers on stone, it looks like Zaltor will try to put up a second castle at some point in the fairly near future. On the left hand side though, his forward town centre on the other stones, I think that's his second stone, and that's a spare stone, like a neutral stone, which has just ended up close to his base. Peganator's Janissary is denying that town centre for a little while, and he's actually got quite a good mass of Janissaries in this area, so really if a plumed archer strays into that group and stands still, they're going to be one-shotted. Peganator also able to one-shot villagers with the attack bonus from that hill with his Janissaries. Plumed archers from Zaltor trying to do some raiding now, but they'll run up against the palisade wall. Will pick up one or possibly 2 villagers. Second villager just escaped, but just pushing Peganator off stone isn't a gigantically important thing at this stage. I don't think Peganator will be too anxious to build a second castle straight away. Both players on 2 town centres for now, villager count roughly similar, so it's nicely poised, but Zaltor does need to have some plan to get back into the middle at some point in the game. whilst he's still got... In fact, this is the only goal he's got access to at the moment, just 3 tiles remaining, because this one on the right, he's actually walled it out, and at the moment he doesn't have anything over there to retake the gold from that single Janissary that's been harassing that wall for such a long time. Looks like Zaltor will try to get in through this wall on the left, assuming that it's unguarded, but he can see farms there, so he can probably assume that there's a town centre there, and he's... At that point you think you're not going to have much success and maybe try a different part. Janissaries from Peganator coming back to stop them breaking down the wall and forcing a retreat. Peganator actually, with the large army size at this point, he's got more Janissaries on the field than Zaltor has plumed archers, and obviously with a massive attack, 1v1 the Janissaries are better, even if they're less versatile. However, in this kind of fight, plumed archers, much faster rate of fire, can move much faster, be microed much better. Looks like Zaltor is going for a somewhat ambitious castle in the middle here. He doesn't really have the army numbers to stop Peganator's Janissaries from denying that, and deny that they will. This castle is looking, well, castle attempt is looking a little bit Titanic to me. It's going to bring more plumed archers in, but they're taking downhill shots from a couple more Janissaries. And really that's not anywhere near enough plumed archers to take on this number of Janissaries. Zaltor has now invested half of the stone for half of a castle into that, so he'll probably be extremely unwilling to delete that, but I really don't see how he's going to manage to actually get that castle up. His army is now down to 6 with 20 Janissaries on the field for the Peganator. I think he sort of overextended himself there and is going to really struggle to come back from that as long as Peganator doesn't allow those 5 villagers to get the castle up. He does need to move over there and stop them, because there's only a tiny bit more HP left to get up to 85%. Peganator needs to micro those villagers individually. Sorry, micro those Janissaries individually to kill the villagers, but they have now got rid of it. It looked like they were sort of firing at the nearest enemy unit rather than doing that, and now Zaltor's gonna just try and bum rush it. But he's only come over with another 6. I'm not sure if that will be enough. I highly doubt it. And really, he's just sacrificed another 5 villagers for nothing. Those plumes aren't going to do the job either, especially from downhill. Zaltor is really throwing away a lot for nothing here. Castle has 6% HP left. He's bringing another half a dozen villagers, but the last half a dozen villagers didn't actually manage to get more than 1 or 2% on that castle, I don't think. So I'm not sure if these will either. Nemino in the chat with the Titanic icon, and I think that's very much justified. Zaltor saying, "Oh my god, GG." I think that was quite a great misjudgment there. It's quite a sizable misjudgment where he thought he was going to be able to just rush that castle with a few villagers each time, but it was quite obvious with that amount of Janissaries that he needed to use a lot more villagers to try and build that castle if that was what he was going to go all in to try and do. It was never going to work with just a few. The amount of Janissaries that were there, especially with the hill advantage. And that means that Peganator takes the series 3-3. Sorry, 3-0. And that means that he moves out into the front running of the bracket that he's in. Oh, sorry, the league that he's in. Because he has picked up 5 points so far from his first 2 sets of games. John the Late took his first set of games 3-0, but plays in just over 20 minutes to try and regain his lead over the Peganator. His opponent is going to be the Dutch player Nimano, who is quite busy spamming the chat at the moment. Or not spamming, contributing to the chat at the moment. So if Nimano can win at least one game from John the Late, then that means that the two front runners in the league will be tied. But if John the Late wins 3-0, then Peganator will fall just behind, 1 point behind in second place, with the final round of games still to play. As I mentioned before, these players in the Champion League, because there are 4 leagues for Noobs of AoC, depending on how they did in the seeding stage. These players in the top league, they're competing for training from Tyrant Slam,